Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week we're back correcting mistakes I've made when I've been making the bus. See you in a minute. Now once again we're on to I think this is the third set of things where I've been making mistakes while I've been doing the bus, which probably just gives an indication of how bad I'm at making things. But these again are more general things. It's nothing specifically to do with the bus. This is bits of filling, bits of work with the threaded inserts to get them working properly, that sort of thing. All little niggles that I've had along the way that we're just showing how we've got out of those problems. Got a quick fix here for a problem that I've got with these threaded inserts. Sometimes, like you can see there, what's happening is when I'm undoing that screw, it's actually unscrewing the threaded insert from the inner piece, which is not what I want. I want to actually get the screw out. So I screw it back in. I've got a hole drilled in a small piece of MDF and a bolt, and as long as you can get at the back, you can put a bolt through back into the, sometimes anyway, hopefully, into the back of the threaded insert and hold it from that side. So we'll see if we can get that done. So that's the offending article down there. What I'm going to do is get a block of wood on the back of it. You might need to get, if you've got a longer bolt or a shorter bolt, sometimes you need to get some washers in to adjust. We'll just screw that in. So we're now into the back of the threaded insert and it's still loose. So I'm going to need something either slightly shorter or a bit of packing underneath that bolt head. All we're trying to do is put a bit of tension on the back of that threaded insert, which will then hopefully stop it rotating. Okay, that's just about put it. Yeah, that's put real tension on the threaded insert and it's clamping it back in. So we'll go around the other side and see if that does the trick now. Got it? That's released it now without any fuss. So when I take that off now, I'll just put a little mark on the outside edge with a pencil to warn me that that one needs re-gluing in effectively. But that's solved that little problem. Right, next problem. Out of about, I don't know, 50, 60 of these threaded inserts, one of them has partly been over tightened and partly been attacked with a screw that didn't quite go in properly, and it's turned it so that the whole thing is loose in the hole. It will tighten in, but there's not really going to be any strength in that. These things aren't doing a great deal. They're holding the side panels on, so if anything they're in shear. The panel goes on there. If anything the force is sideways like that down on them, so there's no pull out force. But I can't tighten a screw into that if it's just going to keep going round when I put any oomph onto it with a rattle gun or anything. So I'm going to do a two-headed approach to this one. Little bit of filler to stabilise around the edge of the hole, and then we'll try and glue the head in with some cyanoacrylate. But first of all I just need to stabilise as much of that hole as I can with filler. Feed it all in. That'll at least go hard and give it something to bite into once it goes hard. The alternative is sawdust and glue as well, wood glue. That's leaving most of it behind on the surface, I think, so we'll poke a bit more down inside it. As I say, the aim is more just to give it a surrounding packing. So that's that part of it done. And then to make 100% certain that it's not going to move when I try and screw into it, I'm going to put some cyanoacrylate all the way around it. That wicks into the MDF, you can see it soaking down into it as we go. And I'll do some from the back as well. That again should help. Make the whole thing damn sight more rigid than it was before. Well, I hope that, there we are, it's not the prettiest of repairs, but it's covered up. So hopefully now that should just screw in. That gives me a good, really tight fix now, solid. So we're not going to get the pulling out on that insert at all in the future. So again, a bit of filler, bit of super glue, covers a multitude of sins. And then on the other side you can see the super glues come right the way through. And we're just going to put the little cover pieces on that anyway, so none of that will show when the little plastic plugs are inserted into there. So that'll cover it all up nicely anyway. Right, now I'd like to address what is, I hope, the last of the cock-ups. When I cut these back panel out, I used the jigsaw and cut very close to the line. Now on the other side it's not a problem, but because the blade wasn't perpendicular to the job when it was cutting, it's slightly undercut, and it's left me a panel from there down to there where you can see there's a gap, which is definitely not very consistent or nice looking. So I shall resort to filler, but I don't want to fill it after I've assembled the bunk, and it's quite difficult to get a decent sort of finish filling a gap like that otherwise. So what I'm going to do is mark up the side of the bus bunk panel there, roughly where I want it to start and end the repair. And what I'm going to do is put some masking tape or sellotape or something of that nature along that edge on that board, and then I can feed in filler and get it smooth up against that tight and square, and that should give me a decent edge, and then I can deal with the actual face edge of this once I take it apart again. But it's important to get that layer of something, be it sellotape, cling film or whatever, on first on here, so that I don't stick that piece to that piece with filler, because when you just knock them apart it will just ruin all the joining in. Right, so I've got the tape on that face now that goes right behind that piece of MDF. Bear in mind that the mattress is going to come up probably up to about here anyway, 150 mil, 100 mil, something like that. So it will only be that bit up there that will show, I think. Just going to damp it down very slightly, purely and simply because the glue, the filler will probably stick better with a bit of water in it, or it'll bond better. And then I'm just going to squeeze it into that gap using my trusty EU medical card, which is no longer valid in any way, shape or form. It doesn't have to be too pretty, because once it's set I can then come back. So that should tidy that up, and we'll wait for it to dry and have a look when it's done. So here we are 24 hours later. The filler has dried. I've just slackened the bolts off on the side of the bus, and as it goes away you can see it's not stuck with two pieces together. A little bit of residue on the actual sellotape, but you can now just peel that back, get rid of that, and we're back to having a decent finish. Just going to get a small block of wood, bit of sandpaper or abranet in my case, rather than doing it by hand, get it on a block of wood so that it stays flat, otherwise you lose some of the straightness in it perhaps. But then just sand it away, get it flat. So there we are, that's just left the faintest trace down that edge, and we can pop that back now, and once that's painted there's no way that you've got that unsightly gap that we would have had before. Just going closer. Well, that's another one wrapped up. Hopefully it was of interest. It's always useful to know how to get out of trouble if you make a mistake in the first place, and as long as you can cover it up or recover it, it then ceases to become a problem. Hope it was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be making something different, and I'll see you then. Bye.